Hello and welcome to this new episode. Within the last episode, we mentioned hunting rituals and cave rituals and briefly mentioned totemism and totems. Within this video, we're going to go deeper into totemism and animal spirits and also a good example regarding that with Gobekli Tepe. Now to start it all off, many ancient cultures practiced animal totemism, where specific animals were revered as symbols of power and connection to the spiritual world. Rituals involving animal dances, mimicry, singing, and symbolic representations were likely part of these practices. A totem being a spirit being, sacred object, or symbol that serves as an emblem of a group of people, such as a family, clan, lineage, or tribe. And these totems serve as emblems of identity and ancestry. Members of a particular clan share a common totem, and it is often considered taboo to harm or consume the totem animal. An animal totem, in that sense, is a spiritual symbol or guide in many hunter-gatherer tribes. It is an animal that is believed to have a special connection with a person, family, or tribe, and is seen as a source of guidance, protection, and wisdom. So they are seen as intermediaries between the human and spirit worlds, helping with matters such as hunting, healing, and decision-making. And each clan is associated with a specific totem animal or natural element. And this totem animal symbolizes the clan's identity, and members of the clan are believed to share a common ancestry with the totem. So the totem animal is seen as an ancestor of the clan. And it's important to note that these ancestral ties are not seen in a biological sense, but in a spiritual and symbolic one. And this is where we have to also make something clear, because the idea of tribe, clan, or people did not mean blood in the sense that some modern people make it to be. It was more a connection by totem animal and language. Totems often also play a role in defining the roles and responsibilities of different clans within the community. And each clan has specific duties related to their totem animal, and these duties are considered essential for the well-being of the entire community. Where the division of labor within such a society was also often influenced by totemic associations as well. For example, a clan whose totem is a particular animal may have a role in hunting and providing food, while another clan associated with a different totem may be responsible for healing or agricultural practices. Where the animal totem is next believed to also possess certain qualities or characteristics that are desirable and could help a person to overcome challenges or achieve their goals. Where for many hunter-gatherer tribes the animal spirit is considered to be a representation of the individual's inner spirit or soul, where the animal totem is the spirit animal of the entire clan or group. And it was believed that each person had an animal spirit that is uniquely suited to their personality, strengths, and weaknesses. The animal spirit was thought to reveal insights about a person's purpose in life and could provide guidance and support throughout their journey, where the animal totem revealed the qualities linked to the clan or group that is associated with it. Some examples are the bear, which symbolizes strength, courage, and introspection, where in Native American cultures, for instance, the bear is associated with healing and self-discovery, where the eagle, for instance, can represent vision, freedom, and spiritual insight, and is often seen as a messenger between humans and the divine, where the wolf symbolizes intelligence, social bonds, and primal nature. The wolf also often being linked to loyalty and family bonds. Finally, a last example could be the owl, which represents wisdom, intuition, and the ability to see through illusions, being a symbol of hidden knowledge. And these animal spirits could be discovered through dreams, visions, or other ecstatic or mystical experiences, such as in the cave rituals. And these spirits could also be passed down through family or tribal traditions, with certain animals being associated with specific lineages or clans. This is when they become animal totems. And when it comes to animal spirits, the person normally, performs rituals or ceremonies to honor the animal and establish a deeper connection with it. And in many hunter-gatherer cultures, the animal totem was also seen as a way to connect with the natural world and the cycles of nature, with ritual dances being a common way to honor totem animals. And these dances often mimic the movements and behaviors of the animals and are accompanied by music and chanting. And we can see this with both the later Koreos and Arctea rituals as well, as much as with the cave rituals that we went into, earlier in the previous episode. Though people involved in these rituals would engage in mimicry of their totem animals, imitating their sounds or movements to establish a deeper connection. Where totem animals also find symbolic representation in various forms, such as masks, totem poles or artwork, acting as a means to establish a deeper connection with these symbolic entities. And these representations also being an integral component of rituals, conducted with the purpose of seeking guidance, protection and blessings from the totem animal. With similar practices also evident in cave rituals, often performed during significant life events like coming-of-age ceremonies or harvest festivals. And these ceremonial activities typically involved storytelling, where designated people would recount stories related to the totem animals through poetry, hymns, or songs. And these stories often would delve into the mythological or historical significance of the totem, frequently intertwined with important deities or even legendary hunters who share a connection with said totem. And in a Norse context, the concept of the fylgja presents a similar animal spirit, acting as a messenger akin to the Jungian anima or animus. So the fylgja assumes the opposite sex of the person and can manifest in animal form. The Norse understanding of the soul is also important here because for them it comprised 4 components, including the hammer, representing one's physical appearance that could be manipulated for shapeshifting, where the hugr, embodying one's personality or character, persists beyond death. The fylgja being the 3rd component, serving as a unique familiar spirit, mirroring the individual's hugr. For instance, a shy person might have a deer, while a warrior could have a wolf, bear, or boar as their fylgja. Where shapeshifting, a widely held belief in Norse culture, represents a spiritual practice where individuals possess the ability to assume the attributes, or within a mythological context, the physical form of their chosen totem animals. From a Jungian lens, what it symbolically does is that it seeks to integrate the inherent strengths and characteristics of these totem animals into the shifter's daily life, with the idea about creating a synthesis between the human and animal realm. So in the context of Norse spirituality, shapeshifting was thus not merely a fantastical notion, but a deeply meaningful ritual with roots in ancient times. So this practice was considered a form of spiritual empowerment, how one could call it, allowing them to transcend the boundaries of their human existence and access the primal qualities embodied by their totem animals. And the act of shapeshifting was a means of not only connecting with the natural world, but also of drawing upon the wisdom and instincts inherent in these animal forms. And these ideas regarding shapeshifting also still persist in contemporary animistic and shamanic contexts. So, it remains a prominent aspect within shamanic cultures, being about the deeper connection between people and their totemic entities. And if we approach this from a Jungian lens, totem animals and animal spirits basically emerge more as archetypal figures who carry specific qualities and characteristics deemed desirable or necessary by the people who adopt them. For instance, a wolf totem may symbolize traits such as loyalty, courage, and intuition, while an owl totem embodies wisdom, insight, and the ability to discern illusions. In this context, totem animals serve not only as symbolic representations, but also as a means of connecting with the natural world and the instinctual dimensions of the psyche. So the process of identifying with a particular totem animal allows the person to access their primal instincts and establish a deeper, more meaningful connection with the natural world. Where another crucial aspect, integral to animistic cultures, is the presence of ancestral guardians. And these spirits or beings, often taking the form of animals, are more closely tied to a person's ancestors. Ancestral guardians were believed to play a protective and guiding role for specific families, offering spiritual support and serving as intermediaries between the living and the ancestral realm. And these guardians manifest in the form of animals, each possessing unique attributes that mirror the qualities or characteristics of the respective family or clan. And Göbekli Tepe in Turkey also serves further as a compelling example for this type of clan totemism as well. To give you more background information about Göbekli Tepe first and its location in Anatolia, well, human habitation in Anatolia dates back to the Paleolithic. Neolithic settlements include Çatalhöyük, Göbekli Tepe, and many others. Neolithic Anatolia has been proposed as one potential homeland of the Indo-European language family, although linguists tend to favor a later origin in the steppes north of the Black Sea. And Anatolian Neolithic farmers derived a significant portion of their ancestry from the Anatolian hunter-gatherers that goes back to 13,500 BC. This population, as established in the field by scholars, are the main source of the ancestry of later early European farmers, who along with Western hunter-gatherers and Western steppe herders are one of the three currently known ancestral genetic ancestors to present-day Europeans. These Anatolian hunter-gatherers began farming around 8,300 BC and also moved into Thrace around 7,000 BC. And as many are probably aware, Göbekli Tepe, an ancient archaeological site located in present-day Turkey, has captured the imagination of researchers and historians for its enigmatic ritual complex. And this complex, dating back to the Neolithic era, also holds significant clues about the spiritual and cultural practices of early human societies. As Göbekli Tepe, with its series of megalithic structures marked by distinct animal representations, offers a window into the beliefs and customs of our distant ancestors. And in this section we will explore the intriguing world of Gobekli Tepe, focusing on the megalith symbolism, the prominent role of T-shaped pillars, and the potential significance of the animal depictions. This site also has strong ties to an ancestral funerary cult as well, with this complex consisting of a series of megaliths, each marked by distinct animal representations including snakes, lions, scorpions, spiders, boars, and particularly vultures. And these various animal depictions are not randomly distributed, but rather cluster within specific enclosures, each dominated by different animals, while vultures appear consistently throughout. This peculiar arrangement suggests a deeper connection to totemism and clan kinship that may have united various hunter-gatherer bands under a common funeral and ancestor cult. Each of these different animals thus might have represented a different hunter-gatherer clan that practiced what is called the skull cult, which is ancestor worship. And after this section, in the next video, we will go deeper into the general sense of what ancestor worship symbolically represents. However, when it comes to this skull cult, the evidence of intentional post-mortem skull modification, including deep linear grooves and drilled holes, suggests a form of ritualistic or symbolic behavior associated with the veneration of human skulls. So the term skull cult, often being used to describe societies or groups that engage in the ritualistic treatment of skulls, sometimes as part of religious or ceremonial practices. And the idea of skull cults and similar practices is also not uncommon in Anatolia and other regions during the Neolithic period. The discovery aligns with other archaeological findings that indicate a variety of burial and post-mortem rituals, including the removal, modification, and creative display of skulls. And the intentional modifications, such as carvings and drilled holes, imply a purposeful and culturally significant practice. Where the earliest pillars they used for their skull cult are the biggest and most sophisticated in construction and artistry. The later pillars, however, are smaller, less intricate in design, and made with less precision. And each of these pillars contained animal symbolism, with the current consensus being that they probably represent clan totems. And each of these enclosures having, as I said, their own cluster of animals, thus reinforcing this notion that it could have been probable, as it is widely known that such totemic practices were common within the Neolithic. And rituals related to successful hunts, fertility, or other aspects of daily life were also incorporated regarding the symbolism of these animals next to death and the underworld. Where the prevalence of snake depictions within enclosure A is indicative of their significance in the context of transformation, the cycle of life and death, and the unknown. Snakes are often associated with shedding one's old self and undergoing renewal. Where next, enclosure B prominently features representations of lions, creatures often viewed as protectors and symbols of the sun and fire. And in this context, they may represent guardians of the ancestral spirits or also be seen as a fierce hunter. Where enclosure C, which is linked to the underworld and death, prominently showcases scorpions. And scorpions' association with the underworld and their potential for harm in the form of their sting makes them a fitting representation of the transition from life to death. Where in another enclosure, spiders are present as well. And spiders are often associated with the trickster archetype and are connected to death and the underworld. Where the symbolism of the trickster figure often represents a dynamic or transformative force. Where boars featured in the enclosures may symbolize themes of agriculture, hunting, fertility, and death. The boar often received a dual role in cultures. It was both an animal associated with death and the underworld, worshipped in chthonic sacrifices, as well as an animal symbolizing fertility and prosperity. And what ties all of this symbolism together are the vultures. And these vultures appear consistently in the megalithic depictions, representing death, decay, and transformation. Their presence reinforces the theme of the ancestral funerary cult and the role of these creatures in the cycle of life and death. Many cultures have long believed that these high-flying carrion birds transported the flesh of the dead up to the heavens. In some ancient Near Eastern cultures, including those that were part of the broader Indo-European language family, the vulture was associated with death and the afterlife. The scavenging nature of vultures, which feed on the remains of the deceased, led to their symbolic connection with mortality and the disposal of the dead. One notable example is from the Zoroastrian tradition in ancient Persia, which is modern-day Iran. In Zoroastrianism, which is part of the broader Indo-Iranian branch of the Indo-European family, exposure of the dead to scavenging birds, including vultures, was considered a means of purifying the remains and facilitating the soul's journey to the afterlife. Where in some Anatolian cultures there is evidence that people engaged in skull cults and other rituals involving the dead, where vultures as scavengers probably played a role in the disposal or transformation of the dead. And the cleaved-off skull that is presented on top of the T-shaped pillars could thus be considered a way to release the soul and allow it to move on to its next incarnation. Generally, though, with these pillars, what we can see is that next to the site having different animals and these clusters on the pillars, they are also associated with elements connected to death, the underworld, or transformation. Also with the consistent vulture symbolism within all of these different enclosures as well. And it is generally accepted by scholars that in the pre-pottery Neolithic of southeast Anatolia, well, that the human skull had a special status. There's then also an abundance of archaeological evidence that points to this. And in each of these enclosures, a pair of massive T-shaped pillars stands at the center, serving as a focal point for the rituals. And these pillars are often several meters tall, carved with intricate designs and often arranged in circular enclosures. Some symbols are zoomorphic, anthropomorphic, and also contains abstract circular designs as well. The pillars being arranged in a circular manner, with twin pillars in the center. These pillars held skulls or other items as a form of homage to their ancestors, signifying a connection to the spirits of the deceased. And the practice of placing skulls on these pillars points to the significance of ancestral veneration within the culture associated with Gobekli Tepe. And regarding this funerary and ancestor cult within the temple complex, what we can see is they place skulls on small T-shaped pillars in the temple to honor the dead. Gobekli Tepe culture used this T-shaped form to describe the underworld of their cosmological belief system, where the paired T-shapes indicate the concept of either twins or a couple of sorts. And in Gobekli Tepe, they in the enclosures would set aside two T-shaped pillars in the center of a circle of other T-shaped pillars, where another T-shaped pillar from Gobekli Tepe is also translated to show the T's relationship to the cosmology. It is composed of the form of a vertical place that has within it a net of serpents, representing the criss-crossing currents of the underworld, where the smaller T-shaped pillars where the skulls were placed also signified ancestors and the underworld. And while the Great Mother archetype is not explicitly represented in the megaliths at Gobekli Tepe, the entire complex dedicated to an ancestral funerary cult and emphasizing themes of death and decay can be seen as indirectly expressing the Great Mother's role in the cycle of life and death. And the Great Mother is a universal archetype symbolizing fertility, creation, and the cycle of life. And the Great Mother archetype is found in various cultures worldwide. Examples from different cultures are the Greek goddess Demeter, the Egyptian goddess Isis, the Hindu goddess Kali, but also Gaia and Cybele, also known as the Mother of the Mountain, or, well, examples of that. And in many cultures, she embodies fertility, creation, and transformation, but is also linked to death. In this context, the rituals and symbolism found at Gobekli Tepe may be seen as a way to honor and connect with this primordial force, ensuring the continuity of life through the honoring of the deceased. There is, however, in Enclosure D, for instance, a different type of symbolism present as well that points to the possible presence of fertility also playing a role next to the ancestor skull cult, though that aspect of the site seems to indeed be the biggest. However, within Anatolian cultures that came after the site, we can clearly see with the Great Mother, which we'll go into in a later section, that there is often this duality of both death and fertility. So the origin of fertility cults of Anatolian and Mesopotamian civilizations thus might be first seen in Gobekli Tepe culture. Fertility has then also been of vital importance for the steadiness of life, so the cycle of death, birth and rebirth would also have been the most important at the initial periods of human civilization. On the two massive pillars in Enclosure D, we further also not only find male-female signs, but also a clear depiction of hands placed on the stomach, next to showing elements of clothing as well, next to a bull symbol on the other pillar. These male-female signs found in Enclosure D could thus possibly represent Cybele and Attis, where the sun-moon signs represent the beginning of spring, the rebirth of nature, and the hand positions on the pillar representing birth and rebirth. So it is possible that the cosmic equinox and sacred marriage ceremonies could well have been celebrated through rituals in Gobekli Tepe first. In addition to this, the second large center pillar instead includes a bull symbol. The bull or Taurus symbols were seen as a symbol of fertility and productivity since the beginning of civilization, and in this case it could represent the uterus of the Great Mother, again meaning fertility and productivity. Next to this being a symbol of deities like Dionysus, known for his ecstatic practices and dances. And these pair of pillars could thus be the first samples of gods and goddesses in human history. Maybe hinting at the origin of the cult of Cybele even, thus symbolizing the goddess and god couple. Though, this remains speculation. This sacred marriage symbolism and ceremonies are connected to the divine couple as well. This and later also played out firmly in the Thracian mysteries, particularly in the rites of deification of Thracian kings in their sacred marriage to the mother of the gods. The Thracians, an Indo-European speaking people, inhabited extensive regions of Southeast Europe in ancient history. Their primary territories included modern-day Bulgaria, Romania and northern Greece, but they also resided in northwestern Anatolia. Although the precise origins of the Thracians remain uncertain, according to scholars, it is believed that they emerged from a mixture of Proto-Indo-Europeans and early European farmers, with migrations through Anatolia. Thracian culture, as perceived by the Greeks and Romans, was tribal in nature, yet it possessed a surprisingly advanced character, particularly known for its poetry and music. Notably, the Thracians held a significant cult devoted to the Thracian horseman, also known as Zabastios or Thracian hero. This god of the underworld was typically depicted on funerary monuments as a horseman, triumphing over a beast with a spear. Additionally, the supreme thunder god Perkon held a place in the Thracian pantheon, although Orphic cults gradually overshadowed his significance. And it is important to note that the Thracians are credited as the earliest worshippers of the god Dionysus in his more original form, referred to as Zagreus in Thracian, and linked to thunder as much as the underworld. The legendary musician, prophet and Thracian bard Orpheus is closely associated with Dionysus. Where there are mysteries connected to the concept of sacred marriage, this was perceived as a match of the initiated dynast who personified the hero with the virgin daughter, an emanation of the mother herself, where upon death the identification of the king with the chthonic aspect of the hero became complete within these mysteries. Think in an Egyptian sense, the living pharaoh as Horus becoming Osiris, associated with the underworld and death, creating both a fertility aspect and an underworld aspect linked to the veneration of heroic ancestors. And this type of sacred marriage also often was connected to both dances and feasting as well. A general celebration of the abundance of life and fertility. Dietrich, in the role of cult and feasting in the emergence of Neolithic communities, also points to this evidence within Gobekli Tepe, of communal feasts being held there. The archaeological evidence found there has an abundance of animal bones, small stone vessels capable of holding liquid, and finally limestone troughs for the cooking of cereals. Next to on limestone bowls from Nevali Sea, another site in Anatolia, there being depictions of two people with raised arms as well. Between them, a turtle-like being is joining the dance, maybe then also reflecting the altered state of consciousness of the dancers. Something that would also be consistent with what is known about earlier prehistoric cave rituals as well. Next to this, Dietrich also pointed out that in the cemetery of Gobekli Tepe, numerous stone vessels were broken at the gravesite, also suggesting that feasting took place there, probably with an ecstatic aspect. Archaeological and chemical evidence further suggests that alcoholic beverages next to feasting in a communal manner may have played an important role in one of the most significant turning points in the history of mankind, an aspect that is also very common in ancestor worship in animistic cultures as well. A prime example of one that survived from the Neolithic until now would be Ninguta, China. In the end, with Gobekli Tepe, ancestor worship is also an important factor here, a concept I want to go into further from a more general sense in the next episode.